My name's Adrian. I'm a Leeds DevOps engineer. I work for a company called SAG, and for the past year and a bit I've been trying to implement DevOps things with respect to applications that sit inside Dynamics 365, which are not classically what you would associate DevOps with, but I don't really see DevOps as a technology, more a set of principles and processes that we use to deliver software and value quickly back to the customer. So that's kind of like, and I've been doing DevOpsy stuff for about 4 or 5 years, having discovered it in a previous role and thought it was really useful. You know, it solved lots of problems for me at the time. What does DevOps mean to me? So that in itself is a massive question, and everybody you ask is going to have a completely different answer to that question. For me, I kind of mentioned those principles before, where you're trying to deliver value back to the company really quickly, get feedback from customers, iterate on the issues that might get raised, or iterate on the feedback really quickly, and then get that back out into production as quickly as possible. The key is iteration and knowing your system, knowing where the problems in your system are, you know, where the slowdowns are. So that's kind of the principles that's kind of what I think DevOps is. But everybody else can argue with me. Tricky, that one. It's a to me it's a fairly young thing, but the kind of where it stems from, the whole agile movement. I kind of see DevOps as a superset of the thing that of agile. So there's this thing called the Agile Manifesto, which tells you in 5 sentences how you should be making your software. And I see DevOps as a superset of that. And in the future, so I can see that getting more and more ingrained into all these companies that are around doing IT. And I can see things like site reliability engineering coming in, where you're taking more experience from software developers and pushing that experience into the operational role more, to bring that more to the fore, to make sure that systems are bomb-proof and they never go down, and to be aware of error budgets and all that kind of stuff. So I can definitely see me straddling both DevOps and site reliability engineering. I know that site reliability engineers probably implement quite a lot of the DevOps stuff with like I said, more software development skills being applied. So things like source control and rapid monitoring and self-service and all that kind of stuff. So I think that I don't necessarily DevOps relies on any particular technology, is my own personal feeling, because I've seen it implemented on a variety of different things that you would never expect it to be, like mainframes and bits of HP software that I used to use, and the thing that I'm currently doing, Dynamics 365. However, I do know that things like Docker and containerization and Kubernetes and use of the cloud, they all lend themselves to DevOps really, really well because of that almost instantaneous feedback that they give you when you deploy your code into production, and you can roll back and fast forward and do that really quickly. So, looking at Kubernetes, and I've been looking at Kubernetes with my team, I can totally see why those tools are very strong in the market at the moment. Me personally, I kind of want to get one step further on than Kubernetes. What does Kubernetes enable you to do? You start looking at Azure functions and lambdas and serverless computing. So that to me is a really interesting thing to look at with respect to DevOps and SREs, because of the ability to lower cost, the ability to not have to necessarily, you can focus your look into security a lot more, checking to make sure that it's just your code. You're not having to worry about the layer of infrastructure that's under the hood, because that's looked after for you by the cloud providers, whereas Kubernetes and Docker and VMs, all of that stuff requires care and attention. So, I guess from a technology perspective, having or seeing, what's the term that I learned the other day? So those things that you can get other people to do for you, get them to do it. Those things that make you unique, focus on that. So for most people, that will be getting your coders to focus on code to deliver what they need to do. Make what differentiates that company from another company. It's not some bod looking after patches on a server. It's getting that code, that code that specifically does something for that company is what differentiates you from each other. So the first thing I would say to that question is read the Phoenix Project. Awesome book, really easily readable. If you've got any sysadmin experience, you'll cry for the first four chapters, but then it gets way better and it teaches you so much. It changes how you think about how these things are put together. It fundamentally changed the way I thought about looking things and treating things as a system, and then trying to optimize that system to get things out quickly, whether that be a workflow, a general workflow, or technology flows, whatever, to make you focus in on things like optimizing for the constraint and making that system more efficient, all that faster feedback, all that good stuff. There's a couple of other books by the same people, but they're not as easily readable as the Phoenix Project, but they're good. Keep an open mind. Don't necessarily say, DevOps must use these tools. Like I said before, I've seen lots of good stories about people that are doing DevOps on things that you would not expect them to do, so try not to be too focused on one particular technology, and if you can, at least start that journey of being able to do a bit of everything. Being, in my current role, we say being T-shaped, have lots of different skills, or teach yourself lots of different skills. So me personally, I can do a bit of database, I can do a bit of web coding, I know my infrastructure, I can piece it all together with a orchestration thing like Ansible or Jenkins or whatever. That kind of stuff. So kind of automation is king. Don't focus yourself too much. There's a lot out there. That's the problem. Is getting all those things into one head's really hard. It takes time. But don't be scared. Don't be scared about it. So me personally, I don't see any. I can see why Amazon has the lead it has. I can see why Microsoft is nipping at its heels, because so Amazon reinvests their money quite a lot into they reinvest all of their profits. They've got a very much long-term thinking, and they're winning that battle quite, with that long-term thinking. So that's really good. I can see why they're pushing forward. Microsoft, they've changed in the last couple of years. They're so open source now. They're focused on the cloud. You can see why that's happening. Google, I can see, they came up with the whole, or I feel as if they came up with the whole cloud infrastructure architecture thing. I'm kind of surprised that they are third, to be honest. Maybe it's because they can't verbalize to their customers how it's going to play out. So I don't know whether or not I'll see in the next few years. I can see some jostling going on between the big three. Not entirely sure whether or not one will win over the other.